Welcome back to another week of Instigating with Clarkey and Drury, brought to you by our friends at Conway Furniture, Highway 86, east end of Listowel, and of course, Larry Hudson Chevrolet Buick GMC. I'm Ryan Drury, and we're very pleased to be joined by a guy who's got a very sharp eye on the Toronto sports scene. A guy we've had on the show before. You know him as the voice that wakes us up in the morning on First Up on TSN 1050 alongside Carlo Colaiacovo. Our buddy TSN's own Aaron Korolnek. AK, how are you, man?
I am fantastic. What a riveting introduction. I could not be possibly be more fired up to drop some hot takes, and the voice that wakes you up. I mean, that's quite the ringing endorsement. So I appreciate it, fellas. It's great to be back with you.
And I love your t-shirt. Hello, is that a Lionel Richie t-shirt? Because I'm a huge Lionel fan.
It's a Jack Armstrong teacher. Really, what I love more is your hat, Clarkey, as a passionate supporter myself. Yeah. I probably should go get my own Argos hat. Big game tomorrow night down at BMO Field with the Argos and the Alouettes.
Absolutely. And I always said I was not getting an Argo hat until they went back to the boat logo. And they did, and I love it. It was always the best logo, and it is the best logo. And I thought, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy a hat. So there you go. Yeah, 2-0 Argos.
Absolutely. The Argos off to a great start, and we're going to dig into that because, of course, everybody waiting to see if they can recover and rebound from the torturous end to last year, obviously, where hopes were very high for another championship. But let's turn our attention right now to a team that, I mean, you talk about the aching wait for a championship, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. And a bunch of them, I'm sure, maybe tuned in to watch the Florida Panthers, another first-time winner, skate around with the Stanley Cup before they could. And AK, when you reflect back on this Stanley Cup final and the journey both those teams went on, and you kind of tie it into what the Leafs have not been able to do, what did maybe some of the Leafs maybe watching take away from what Edmonton and Florida just did? And what do you think the Leafs need that those teams have?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, Edmonton and Florida are built in very different ways, right? Edmonton has McDavid and Draisaitl and Zach Hyman and Evan Bouchard, their best players performing as their best players. And not only as their best players, but performing as the best players in the entire National Hockey League. That's something the Toronto Maple Leafs best players just simply have not done throughout their careers in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you have that for Edmonton, where, again, McDavid and Draisaitl, 3 and 4 all-time in points per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's a reason they've won so many playoff games, and it's in large part due to those two individuals just dominating, which is what they're capable of doing in both the regular season and the postseason. And you look on the other side with the Florida Panthers, I mean, a team that is just built remarkably well. From the net out, Bobrovsky a stud. They have stud defensemen. They get Gustav Forsling off of waivers, and the guy becomes one of the top 10, 15 defenseman in the NHL. Ekblad, a first overall pick. They've just done such a good job of team building. And you look at up and down that lineup, the forward groups, they're deep down the middle on the wings. It's just a complete and comprehensive hockey team. So I think as far as team building, Florida and Edmonton different, but that's what's going to happen when you pay McDavid 12.5, Draisaitl $8 million. Now that's not going to last forever. Maybe one more year. We can get to that a little bit later. But for the Leafs, what can they take away? I think it's pretty simple. They pay guys like Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Tavares, for now anyways, exceptional amounts of money. And those guys just haven't been living up to their salaries in the postseason. And when you allocate this year $47 million to 4 forwards and they aren't the best players in the playoffs or amongst them, yeah, you get the same result every year, which is a first round or, in the case of last year, a quick second round departure.
I think we want to dive into the Leafs a little in a bit, but let's talk about that Stanley Cup final. What a wild ride it was, going 7 games. After the first 3, I picked Florida in 5. I thought, I had it made. You're a betting guy. How did your roller coaster go? Did you put a lot of shackles down along the way?
Well, I did have an Edmonton future from the beginning of the season, so that was something I had abandoned, just like everybody would abandon a team that's down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final. No team had come back to win or come back to force a game 7 since 45, come back to win since 42. So I had no hopes, but lo and behold, McDavid takes control, 8 points in those 2 games, games 4 and 5, and Edmonton all of a sudden makes it a series. Game 6, they bring it back to Alberta. They win that game. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, oh, my God, maybe I actually have a chance to cash this ticket. And we know what happened in game number 7, but it was wild. And I think the Conn Smythe voting was perhaps the most interesting betting aspect of the final, where think about after game 1 or even game 2 and 3, Bobrovsky or Barkov were virtual locks. And then McDavid just explodes the 42 points in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Ultimately, it goes to McDavid in almost unanimous fashion when it's all said and done. But the betting odds at the end of game 7, when Florida had the lead, it was almost a close contest between McDavid and Sasha Barkov, which actually turned out not to be the case. It was actually a foregone conclusion. So yeah, betting-wise, I thought that was a really interesting Cup final. Now we look ahead to next year, and even some of the awards that are coming out. Of course, the NHL draft to come as well. So always stuff to bet on when it comes to the NHL.
When you look at the run that Florida went on, and you talk about that Conn Smythe voting, and it made it so difficult with what McDavid did. I mean, the 4th highest point total ever in a playoff, and he broke the assist record as well. And it puts voters in a pretty tough position, obviously, and there were plenty of guys on Florida that were deserving too. Did you agree with McDavid getting it in a losing effort, especially when he had no points? That was a big talking point in game 6 and 7. Game 6, he didn't even have a shot. Did you agree with a losing player getting it? Because that was a hotly debated topic. I know you and Carlo talked about it, and the Overdrive guys talked about it quite a bit. Hayes and Odog, they were in a pretty heated argument over this. He's just the 6th player overall ever to do it on a losing team, and just the 4th in the modern day NHL, that's post-draft era, to do it. Did you agree with it, and what would you have done maybe?
100% McDavid was the Conn Smythe winner, the worthy recipient, should have been unanimous. And I think in large part it's due to his performance. Again, you brought it up, the 42 points. He broke Wayne Gretzky's record for assists in a postseason. Really, that could just end the conversation. But on the other side, Bobrovsky had a great run, but we know some of those horrible performances he had. The end of game 3, game 4, game 5, game 6 gave up 3 goals. I thought he kind of ruled himself out. His numbers weren't good enough. And you can make the argument for Barkov, I suppose, but you also need to keep in mind Barkov had 20 points fewer than Connor McDavid. I understand his team won, and I understand the two-way play of Sasha Barkov, but I can't overlook the statistical domination that McDavid put out, not only in the Cup final, but through the course of the entire playoffs.
Absolutely. And you look at Florida, and they've won now, and they've established a real culture there. And when you kind of consider how they built the team, you brought it up earlier, the team's obviously built a little differently. Edmonton, quite a bit more homegrown talent, including in net, and all of the big guns, of course, homegrown guys. Florida, just 3 of those, I believe, on their roster. I mean, that's a team that has wheeled and dealed, including massive ones like the Tkachuk deal, obviously. Bringing Bobrovsky in, and keep in mind at the start of his Florida career, it looked like they were doing all they could to try and get rid of him. There were rumors that they were going to try and consider a buyout, which would have been a disaster in hindsight. They were trying to move him to some other teams with more cap room. They end up keeping him. And when you look at him specifically, Clarkey and I have talked about this. We had John Lazarus from NHL Network on last week talking about this, and I've had arguments with quite a few people about it. I love Sergei Bobrovsky. I love his resume even more so now, and I loved it before. And I felt he was a Hall of Famer before this Cup win. That was my opinion. I think he's a lock Hall of Famer now, AK. Over 300 wins, 2 Vezina trophies, got nominated for the award again this year, didn't win it, obviously. I think this guy could walk into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I don't think there is any type of debate anymore. I think perhaps if they had lost in game 7, it might have been a better piece of debate. And I don't know how you would possibly argue against Sergei Bobrovsky. His resume is virtually unimpeachable now. The back-to-back Stanley Cup appearances, the win. Again, he was right in the mix for the Conn Smythe right until the very end. And the 2 Vezinas, and he's far from done. I mean, this guy's got a long runway here on an amazing hockey team that's going to pick up a lot more wins and probably a lot more playoff victories as well. Bobrovsky's in, and I know a guy like Curtis Joseph isn't in, but again, Cujo didn't win Vezinas. Like, it's a different type of debate, and I think it's a lot of longevity. And when it's all said and done, I think Cujo and Sergei Bobrovsky will have a similar number of wins. And you can go back and relitigate the Hall of Fame debates with so many different guys, Alexander McGillney versus whoever who's not in, or Keith Tkachuk, or Rod Brindamore versus guys who are in. But when it comes to Bobrovsky, I don't really see how you'd conjure up an argument against his Hall of Fame case at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
I
sure.
completely
Okay, let's
agree.
get into the
Clarkey?
Leafs, Ryan. Ryan, it's time to
Yes.
get into the Leafs. It's time. Okay, AK, we have you on this show because we love your Leaf takes. What's going to happen with Mitch Marner? Are they going to get this guy moved? I know the draft as well as we record this show tomorrow, Friday night. Something's got to give, doesn't it?
I know, actually. In a perfect world, the Leafs would prefer to trade Mitch Marner, but there are just so many factors that are working against them that I think it's a possibility. And again, my personal opinion is the Leafs should do what they can to move on from Mitch Marner, try to bring in assets as best they can, if not create salary cap space, but you can't run it back with the same core again. That is my contention. Now, I don't think that's what's going to happen, sadly, because they are hamstrung by three individual factors here. Number one, Mitch Marner has a no movement clause. Number two, if you're going to trade Mitch Marner, you need to get a return. You need to get some quality pieces back, which is a challenge. And number three, there's almost certainly a contract extension attached to that trade. Is there a team out there that is willing to give up pieces, that is willing to, or that Marner is willing to go to, and it give Mitch Marner a contract worth close to $100 million over 8 years? Those are three separate factors that need to happen before a deal can be consummated. I am not sure that that's out there. I'm not sure teams out there value Mitch Marner like that, and he might have to prove it. And he'll do it in the regular season, no doubt. But I think Mitch Marner looks at it. If he wants to get this massive contract from the Toronto Maple Leafs or from somebody else, he's going to have to go out and do it in the playoffs, because paying a guy $12 million times 8, whatever it could be, maybe it's more, for his playoff performances over the year, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't make any sense for a team to do that, even with the salary cap rising. So unfortunately, I think I'm starting to lean more towards the idea that Marner does return, and how it plays out over the course of the season, man. It's going to be fireworks day after day down at Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, it's tough too. We're chatting with first up host on TSN 1050 Radio, Aaron Korolnek, and of course you can catch their podcast as well if you can't tune in live Mondays to Fridays 6 to 10 with Carlo Colaiacovo. And chatting about the Leafs, this Marner thing, I mean, it seems to be an anvil hanging over them. And really, the talk about the core 4, the core 5, if you want to throw Morgan Rielly in there, has been the dominant chatter for years now. And really, since they all ended up getting paid, and now they're all getting paid double digits, with Nylander now joining the fray at 11.5 next year. And you look back, I was having a conversation with guys in my hockey pool about bad GMs and bad deals that hamstrung teams. You're looking at this right now with their track record, and I'd almost kind of equate it to what Mike Milbury did with the Islanders in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now, that was a no salary cap world, but he gave a bunch of money to guys that did not work out, traded players away, and a ton of draft picks, first round picks out the wazoo to get players that ended up not being very effective. And you think about the money that he gave to Alexei Yashin, Rick DiPietro, he gave money to the wrong guys. Are you afraid right now as a fan? And Clarkey, I'd love your thoughts on this too. Are you guys starting to get afraid and enter that territory where you're scared that this might just be the Leafs' reality because of the money that they've spent, and that this might all be culminating in them being held back as a franchise for years to come, because these guys just cannot get it done as a group, but they all have so much player power that they can't go anywhere?
Yeah, and so, Clark, if I may jump in first, the player power comes in the form of massive salaries and no trade clauses, right? Things that have been part of this whole equation for many years now. I would take issue with the idea of the core 4, which I don't think exists anymore. It's a core 2 of Austin Matthews and William Nylander. Those are the guys who are signed long-term. Mitch Marner's got a year left. Tavares, obviously not part of the future. Maybe he will remain a Maple Leaf, but he'll be making a third, a fourth of what he currently makes, maybe even less than that. So you're looking at Matthews and Nylander. And am I worried about the future and the allocation of money? Yes, I am, because they've consistently doubled and tripled and quadrupled and quintupled and whatever comes after that down on the same guys in spite of the same performances in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And why they do that, I guess, you make a lot of money selling seasons and playoff games. You're going to make the playoffs. And you don't know if you trade Mitch Marner for a couple of depth defensemen in the first round pick, which is probably the return you're looking at, then your team might not be nearly as good. You might not make the playoffs. Who knows? So I think that needs to be factored in. But I think the Brendan Shanahan tenure, you're talking about a decade now, a decade of this, where they won one round in 20 years, haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. I mean, you would think at some point something would change, but I think you're looking at this season as a run it back year with a different coach. And that's the big changes that they were talking about. Craig Berube, it's on his shoulders to figure out a way to get them over the hump. And is that a fair thing for a coach? Absolutely not. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm hopeful that they can find a way to make some kind of Marner move and make some kind of tangible change to the roster. But simultaneously, I'm skeptical that it happens as well.
Yeah, it's tough to say. And I don't know. Yeah, and the Berube thing's interesting too, because a lot of people are kind of going, "Oh, okay, now they've got the hard ass in there, the coach that will demand more of them." That's already been there. Mike Babcock was brought in to be that guy, and did he push a lot of incorrect buttons along the way, specifically with a guy like Mitch Marner? Yes, he did, and by all accounts, he's not exactly the greatest guy, and I genuinely hope he doesn't work again as a coach in the league. However, when you talk about Berube, I think it is very unfair pressure that a lot of fans I'm hearing are putting on this guy. They're like, oh, for sure now he's going to be the guy to get Matthews and Marner going. They're going to hit in the playoffs now and play like rabid dogs. Keep in mind that St. Louis team he won with was a very different team with a very different spine. They had a great goaltender who got hot at the right time. They had a extremely talented defense core, which this team just does not have. And that's the big thing going forward, AK. The back end of this team, the top end talent's there. They're going to have to plug some holes in that top six and the bottom six. Yes. But that back end, I went into last year talking to Clarkey. I hate it. I still hate it. And the goaltending is a huge question mark too. Only Joseph Woll under contract. What do they need to try and do here? Because that grouping is just not good enough. It's not going to get it done when we look at the two teams that just battled out for the cup and you look at their D-cores. This Leafs D-core is universes away from being that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And my man Carlo Colaiacovo is steadfast in his belief that Chris Tanev will be a Toronto Maple Leaf on July the 1st. Does that solve what ails the Toronto Maple Leafs? So you have a top four of Riley, Tanev, Simon Benoit, Jake McCabe. Your third pair is Liljegren on the right side and maybe Joel Edmondson. Is that good enough for you? Maybe. Again, Chris Tanev, it requires a significant investment as far as dollars, as far as term goes. Is that something that you're looking to do if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs? I think the answer is yes, because in free agency, you overpay. That's just what happens. Brandon Montour is going to be overpaid. He's going to get a 7-year deal, and we'll be looking at that 4 years down the road and be like, what the hell was that GM thinking? Same goes for a guy like Brett Pesce and Brady Shea. And I think Chris Tanev would be at the top of that list because he's 34, turning 35 in December, and he's probably going to get, at worst, a 4-year contract. But when you have a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs that can flex its financial might, you front load the contract, you tell Chris Tanev, hey, buddy, by the way, in like 3 years, if you're no good anymore, you're probably going to Robidas Island alongside all those other fallen soldiers. That's my best guess as to how this plays out. I think you're probably looking at Tanev 4 years, $6 million per. Maybe that's on the high end as far as money goes, but I think he'll be a Toronto Maple Leaf on July the 1st, and I think that's a great move. And then we know the familiarity there with Tree Living and Tanev from their time together in Calgary. So I think that if you want to connect the dots, that could definitely be something that happens. Is that D good enough? And then you mentioned the goaltender, Joseph Woll, who I think is going to be a stud for them, but he can't stay healthy. So you need to go ahead and find a partner for him. And is it Cam Talbot or Stolarz, the backup in Florida? Maybe it's Laurent Brossoit, Hellebuck's backup in Winnipeg. I think that's possible. And I think Joseph Woll should be given an opportunity to run with this number one job because he's more than capable of doing it. The only thing he hasn't been capable of is staying on the ice. And, the best ability is availability when you're in the NHL. And for Woll, that's been an inability for him. So we hope that's the case, of course, to see Joseph Woll stay healthy. And if all those things come together, the Leafs will be just fine. But there's a lot of ifs.
There are a lot of ifs for sure. Clarkey, you're muted. You got to unmute yourself, Clarkey. Clarkey doesn't want to be part of the Leafs
Can
conversation.
You hear me now?
You're in. You're in.
Good. Sorry about that. I was just going to say just fine isn't good enough. They need to be better than just fine. I mean, you asked me earlier if I was concerned about this team. Of course, like I've been concerned about this team every year of my life. It's just the way it goes. I didn't get this lovely tattoo on my arm because I.
Oh, look at those guns.
No, it's not the guns I was showing you.
Jeez.
Anyway,
Orelvis Martinez?
Yeah. And I was always, when I worked for the team, and I would hear some of my buddies saying that this team doesn't care about winning, all they want to do is make money, I would defend them to the nth degree. But it just seems now that I'm not a part of the team that when you look at the team and you look at the guys they have like Marner and the jerseys they're selling and everything else associated with the team, that this team is just rolling in the dough. And I guess you got to be careful there. And your parent company is a part owner of this team. But you know what? Like, it's hard to defend that now in my mind. It really is, because if they bring Mitch Marner back, my argument was if they win the Stanley Cup, this team will make way more money in everything else with a Stanley Cup on it than they would in jerseys. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. But it does concern me. Of course, it concerns me. They do have to move on. They can't roll it back. They cannot do that. I will not be happy if they do roll it back. Even trying to trade Morgan Riley, who may be out of the core five, the easiest guy to trade, because if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, he doesn't have a no movement clause.
Oh no, he does. He does.
No movement?
Oh yeah. Dude, everybody's got a no move.
I didn't think he did.
David Camp has a partial no move clause, Clarkey. Yes. They hand them out like it's candy. There's no control. Oh, you have a no move. You have no crazy. You have 11-5. It's just whatever you want. It's just hand over the blank check and we'll sign it for you. That's how this organization has been operating forever. So they all control their own destinies.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get why they have to do that, but it just seems like they do. They just think they do. And I guess at the end of the day, you know what? If they can move Mitch Marner now and get a good trade out of it and bring a good prospect back. I read on Twitter the other day there was a deal done with Utah.
No, that was nonsense. But I will say, here's one thing about Marner. And there's this thought, someone, I can't recall exactly who it was, someone more legitimate than the no-name person who works for a fake publication that tweeted out that Mitch Marner rumor that was completely false. Oh, but the Leafs should offer Marner a contract extension, but they shouldn't give him a no-move clause. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what Mitch Marner's going to go for. Exactly. Mitch Marner's going to accept that. Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. When you give everybody else everything, the next guy in line's going to want the exact same thing, and rightfully so. Mitch Marner should be commanding a full no-move clause, and at the bare minimum, what William Nylander got from the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. All that money up front, $16 million hitting your bank account every July 1st for 5 years. Does life get any better than that, Clarkey? Much like yourself on July the 1st, just 4 days away from that $16 million in your bank account. So it's comical, I agree. But at the same time, they've got 1 year left of Marner, 1 year left of Tavares, and I think the latter is probably more pressing in that at least Marner is still a great player. And say what you will about his playoff performance, there's no doubt about it. Tavares,
and you know what'll happen? He'll go somewhere. He'll go somewhere and get 40 points in the playoffs and lead a team to the Stanley Cup. That's just a Leafy thing that would happen.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's true.
Yeah, well, he's a good individual player that could fit in. Well, I mean, we watched Phil Kessel do it, similar type of narrative, and that was on a team that was set up very differently in Toronto. Let's be fair here, but he is talented enough to be part of a championship winning team. We watched Nazem Kadri do it as well, a guy that I feel like they never should have let go in the first place. I don't know. It's a tough call for sure. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, lots more to touch on with AK, including the vibe check overall of the sports scene in Toronto. It's dark right now. Like, we're talking about the Leafs and everything. At least there's some optimism. They're going to make the playoffs next year. The other teams around the city, other than the Argos, not feeling awesome right now. We're going to talk about that next here on Instigating. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury, brought to you by Conway Furniture and, of course, Larry Hudson, Chevrolet Buick GMC. Ryan Drury back here with Clarkey, still joined by the great host of First Up in the morning on TSN 1050, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10. You can catch this guy throwing out hot takes about the Toronto sports scene and much more with Carlo Colaiacovo. Aaron Korolnek still on with us, AK. We were just talking a little bit about the Leafs and what their offseason might look like, touched on that great Cup final. Let's shift our focus to some of the other sports entities in the GTA, if you will. And let's start with the one that's the hot topic right now, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. And my God, I think we all kind of felt like it might be slightly an underwhelming season, unless a bunch of things went right with their hitters. Did you foresee this type of disaster? Because this thing went off the rails early and it's never gotten back on track. They are deadbeat horrible, AK.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I don't think anyone could have foreseen quite this terrible a performance from this baseball cast quality players. I mean, Bo Bichette has been, I believe, over the last 3 years, leads the American League in hits. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., looking back at 2021, at least one of the best hitters in baseball. Of course, I think he's kind of regressed to the mean. He's more of a above average first baseman. But guys like Springer, guys like Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Kiermaier, they've just fallen off a cliff. The bullpen has been a disgrace between injuries and poor performances. No, this team is just objectively one of the biggest disappointments in Major League Baseball. And there's, I think, 6.5 games out of a playoff spot at the current moment. They've got the Yankees in town this week. No easy task, although they haven't been playing well. And it's pretty clear that the Toronto Blue Jays are looking to 2025 as far as their next chance to be competitive, because 2024, the time is up. So how do you do that? Do you look at trading your pending free agents like Kikuchi and Jansen and Jimmy Garcia and Trevor Richards and Kiermaier, Turner? Yes. The answer to all those is yes. You move on from all those guys. You try to pick up as many assets as you can. And the big questions now is revolve around Bichette and Guerrero, both of whom have been involved in different types of trade talks. The rumor mill is abuzz with those two after Bichette was asked by Hazel May if he's been thinking about the trade deadline and if he'd be surprised if he was traded. And he said, I would not be surprised at all. And when you have your star player, arguably your biggest superstar, say that a year away from free agency, probably not a good omen for the future of your baseball club. So the Blue Jays have a major, major problem at hand. And I don't know who the hell is going to be in charge to solve it, but it should not and cannot be the current guy. I can tell you that.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Like, there's no way they can, like, should John Schneider be fired? Who knows? He doesn't have the horses to get out there every day. But the bottom line is, they can't allow Atkins to do that anyway. He's done that too many times. That number is gone. He can't rely on that. How is this guy still around? I don't understand it.
Well, here's my theory. I actually have a theory on this Atkins thing. I think they probably acknowledged a couple of weeks ago, after that 7-game losing streak anyways, that this team wasn't going to be competitive and they were going to be sellers. So here's what you do. Shapiro, all the guys at the top are looking at this like, you know what, let Atkins handle this, although we're really in charge here, right? The front office, known as a group think front office, in that they all come together and come to decisions. At least they try to come to decisions with a group mentality. So, all right, Atkins will go out. Maybe he trades Bo Bichette. He's going to trade all these free agents. And then August, September, October rolls around. Oh, we've decided to move on from Ross Atkins and put somebody else. He will be the fall guy for this. As every president gets their, like, at least one do-over, right? When it comes to their general manager, Mark Shapiro, he is the president of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think people are forgetting that involves the baseball team as well. The renovations, that's been the talk of the town. Oh, Shapiro, what an amazing job he's done with the renovations, yada, yada, yada. That's true. But that's just one small part, I guess a large part of his role. He also oversees the baseball operations, and the baseball operations have been a disgrace. They have not won a playoff game, a single playoff game in this era of Shapiro and Atkins. Atkins is going to be the fall guy. Is that fair? Yeah, Atkins should be. He should be. But I don't think Shapiro should be absolved of anything. He's on the clock, too, as far as I'm concerned, because he's been overseeing this operation. Very reminiscent of the Shanahan, Dubas, all that nonsense that was going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. No one looks at Shanahan and nobody looks at Mark Shapiro because, oh, wow, there's cup holders in the seats at Rogers Center. What a delight. Mark Shapiro is doing a great job. He's not doing a great job because I can guarantee you that when the Blue Jays are making decisions like they did last offseason, Mark Shapiro is in that room making those calls alongside Ross Atkins. Will Atkins be fired? 100% yes, barring some kind of miracle turnaround. And I don't think Shapiro's far behind if this team's performance continues to trend in this direction.
Yeah, we're chatting with first up host on TSN 1050, Aaron Korolnek. And AK, you know, I love your point about Shapiro not being absolved here because, yeah, building or renovating a great stadium, like what he's essentially done is it's almost like building a brand new Malibu mansion and filling it with garbage furniture and brutal rugs from the 60s. Like no one cares. Great looking bones on that house. But when I go inside, you got carpets from 1942 here. You can smell the World War in them. It's ridiculous. It sucks what's in the house. And that's the point here with him. And I don't want to talk too much more about the team this year. We know where they're at. As we record this, they're 36-43. They're 14 and a half back of the Yankees. Put a bullet in it. It is dead. My big concern is what happens going forward, which you've touched on here. And Ross Atkins can simply not be a part of that. Let's be honest here. They ran on a very tight penny-pinching ownership budget in Cleveland and managed to do pretty okay there. Now, the majority of that was when Shapiro was GM and president of baseball operations. Then he moved over. The last 3 years they were in Cleveland is when Ross slid into the GM seat. But Mark is overseeing all this stuff. This guy's a baseball lifer. So is his dad. I am terrified of either of these guys being in charge of what happens in the future, and especially if that involves, I tweeted the other day, Clarkey, I'm sure you saw because I'm your favorite follow. I tweeted the other day, this team needs to go down to the studs like the 2014 Astros. We need a full teardown, carpet and all. It's all got to go. And that's going to be painful, but that's what they're looking at here. They have two superstars that aren't superstars. Bo Bichette at his height is a very, very good player. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. continues to prove that he cannot reach those lofty heights of 2021. Gun to my head, if they were to keep one of them, I guess I'd keep Vladdy just in case that power comes back. But when you look at going forward, when a team like the Yankees struggles like they did last year, look at the bounce back because of young players that are coming up through their system like Anthony Volpe, like Yason Dominguez and guys like that. Still have a great farm system. The Dodgers spend lots of money. Great farm system. The Jays farm system is an absolute joke, and it actually might be the worst aspect of their franchise. It was ranked as high as 7th in 2021. It is ranked 24th. A team spending that kind of money that, keep in mind, built a brand new $210 million development facility in Florida. What are they developing down there? Absolutely nothing. These guys can't be in charge of trading your best players for great prospects and trying to develop them, AK. It simply cannot happen.
So I think with the idea of tearing it down to the studs, and I agree in theory that, I mean, you also look at the Baltimore Orioles. They tore it down. They were absolute garbage for a number of years. They got all those great draft picks, the Hendersons, the Rutschmans, the Jackson Holidays, and they are arguably the marquee franchise in baseball. But when you consider that 6 of 15 teams make the playoffs in both the American League and the National League, right? You consider that the Toronto Blue Jays are spending upwards of $250 million in their payroll. I should add, next year, they have committed, if you look at the arbitration for Vlad and try to figure out what that looks like and whether or not he's on the team next year remains to be seen, you're looking at already $190 million committed next year. There's no teardown. They can't do it. They have too much money committed to all players next year. The only thing they can do is try to retool on the fly. And what that looks like is a fantastic question, because guys like Kiermaier and Turner, they just made really bad bets on older players that simply don't have it anymore. Those guys will be out. And it is incumbent on Shapiro, Atkins, James Click, who I think is the natural successor to Ross Atkins, was the general manager for the Houston Astros. and is in the Blue Jays front office right now. As soon as James Click was hired, a lot of people around the team were saying, that's your next GM following Atkins. Now, is that sufficient as far as a different voice in the room? Probably not, because James Click, I can tell you right now, is contributing to every single discussion they're having on this baseball team now, and the same discussions that were had in the offseason. So if you're looking to be satiated as far as a complete culture shift within that front office that starts at the top, it's got to be Shapiro and everybody involved there. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think Atkins will be relieved of his duties. I think essentially they threw him out there on this Thursday afternoon on June the 27th, and he was made the sacrificial lamb for this season. And I think it's become pretty obvious that he will not be around for that much longer based on the way he was kind of thrown to the wolves today, to the media, taking accountability, saying it's all on him, which it's not, I should add. It is not all on Ross Atkins. He is the general manager, needs to take responsibility. But to say it's all on him is ridiculous, because we know that's not how that front office operates. In a perfect world, I'd love to see them get rid of, just clean house. But this is a team that just invested $300 million, I think maybe $400 million into the Rogers Center. They're not tearing it down in the studs. They're going to try to be competitive, which I believe is the right course of action at the end of the day, because they do have some pieces in place that can be salvaged. And you need to look at trades and free agency and make some really shrewd moves there. But I don't see a world in which the Jays aren't trying to make the playoffs and trying to win a World Series next year, as absurd as that sounds, considering where they are this year.
Yeah, and I'm scared. I'm scared about what it would look like if they take that approach. And Ken Rosenthal had a great piece in The Athletic today asking some hypothetical questions. What do they do? Did they try and trade Vladdy and Bo and maximize on potentially? I mean, they can't even maximize on their potential. That's all they can really sell right now. Look at what they used to do. But they're both still young. So they are obviously the crown jewels that they have in terms of any trade value. You're not trading George Springer. No one's taking $25 million. You're not trading Jose Barrios because he's still a stud and makes too much money as well. So it is hard to reset. My concern is if they did go that way, hypothetically, I can't have Ross Atkins do that on July 31st. And I saw a rumor that the Cubs are sniffing around. My Cubbies are sniffing around Vladdy Jr. Like, if they do that, like, Pete Crow Armstrong has to be part of the trade package. You cannot trade Vladdy Jr. to a team like the Cubs and not get their best prospect back. It has to start with Pete Crow Armstrong, and I'm scared that it won't as a hypothetical. I want your take on this because I know Clarkey has lots to say on this too, and he knows where I'm going.
I don't have a lot.
Let me please,
just
Clarkey, go ahead.
I don't have a lot to say in it.
Go ahead.
All I want to say is this all started when someone brainiac at Rogers thought Alex Anthopoulos wasn't the guy to move forward with this team.
Oh, God.
And it just, there's nothing really to say about it because it was such a joke. I mean, Canadian, winner. He's gone on to win. It just drives me crazy. Even
he signed Ronald Acuna Jr. for $100 million. How's that even possible? Ronald Acuna Jr., who's unfortunately hurt right now, makes $10 million a year. He gets bonus money, but he makes $10 million. How did he get? Ronald Acuna Jr. should launch his agent into the sun. That's an awful deal for Ronald Acuna Jr. And Alex Anthopoulos did. He got Matt Olson for $125 million, one of my favorite players. It's a joke. I've thrown this out to a number of baseball people that we've had on. Rob Longley. We've had a number of different people on who agree with the take, but this is pie in the sky stuff. Let's just pretend I'm Ed Rogers. I have all the money in the world. I'm in control here. And I want you to put this hat on as well. I've said numerous times, I don't care what it takes. I don't care what kind of money I have to spend. I don't care what I have to do to get this guy up here. Give him my private jet. I'll buy him a house. I don't care. I would be ringing Theo Epstein's phone off the hook to get him to come to Toronto. He's the only guy I feel could actually make tangible major differences to the way this ball club operates. He did it in Boston as a 28-year-old and ended the curse of the Bambino. He did it in Chicago, arguably one of the hardest jobs in North American sports, endeared himself to that fan base, completely retooled them, and ended ended that curse as well. 108 years, the curse of the Billy Goat. We need him to come to Toronto and end the curse of the computer. We need it.
Well, I mean, you remember like one of the reasons Anthopoulos didn't see eye to eye with this group, including Mark Shapiro, is because Anthopoulos wanted autonomy in his decision making, which makes all the sense in the world. A manager should have autonomy in his decision making. So if you think Shapiro is going to be like, sure, Theo, come on in here, you can just control all the baseball decisions. That's
Puppets.
just not how they work. So sure, in a perfect world, would I love Theo Epstein to replace Mark Shapiro, run everything under the sun when it comes to the Blue Jays? Absolutely. Do I see that happening? I don't. I think Shapiro is very much ingrained in the Rogers organization at a very, very high level, managing an enormous financial responsibility with both the baseball club and the Rogers Center. And by all accounts, there could be a lot more stuff down the road or in that area with the Rogers Center. Some of the stuff that has been discussed around the COVID times about the potential of development around there, different neighborhoods, which I'm sure Shapiro will be tasked with as well. So there are so many people I think are better equipped to handle a baseball team than the current gentlemen who are in charge of this baseball team. But as hopeful as I would be to see a new voice and a new person at the top of the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm just very skeptical what happens. I think Shapiro's in here for the long haul, and I think he'll get an opportunity to replace his general manager as soon as in the next couple of months. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
I'm skeptical too. It's pie in the sky stuff. This is me being a dreamer. They call me a dreamer.
Yeah.
And if my dreams could come true, Theo would be number one on my list because of how transformative that guy is. I mean, look at his track record, and Shapiro in a boardroom with Ed Rogers and the rest of the ownership group. I don't know what he can lean back on other than saying we put cup holders in. That makes a tangible difference. This baseball team absolutely categorically sucks, and they are sucking the soul out of that great fan base. And on that note, I want to ask you, what's the general vibe check on the Toronto sports scene right now, AK? You're a fan, you host a great show, you're friends with fans, you work with other fans. What is the vibe like in the city right now?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. There's very little redeeming qualities when it comes to Toronto sports. Consider everything we just talked about with the Leafs. The expectation is they're going to run it back with the same guys, which we know where that will probably lead, a first-round departure at the hands of Florida or Boston or Tampa come the spring. So there's that. The Raptors, what hope do you have? What's the best-case scenario for them this year? Maybe a 7th or 8th place finish, losing the first round of the playoffs to Boston or New York. That's the best case. And the Blue Jays are, as you've eloquently so stated so in this conversation, I mean, they're not even close to consider what the Baltimores and the New Yorks are in their own division. It's not in the same ballpark, to use baseball parlance. So yeah, the Toronto sports scene is terrible right now. And it's amazing how quickly things have changed, where think back to 2019, where the Raptors were doing their thing, winning the NBA championship. The Leafs were on the up and up. They had Matthews and Marner and Nylander, 21, 22 years old. We're talking about a dynasty. Move over, Chicago Blackhawks. It's Marner and Matthews, the new Taves and Kane. We know how that's played out. At least the Argos are 2-0. Unfortunately,
That's right.
Are,
That's right. Before we let you go, let's talk about the Argos. I mean, Chad Kelly obviously suspended. They put up their dukes, and he's been good so far. 2-0. Did you expect this out of the gate?
No, I did not. And consider the opposition as well, right? BC and the opener team out west. And the win over the Edmonton Elks following the bye was a really impressive one, where they outscored a very potent offensive team in the Elks. I don't think the Toronto Argonauts with Cameron Dukes win the Grey Cup. I don't. And this is no disrespect to Cameron Dukes. I just don't think he's at the caliber of quarterback that Chad Kelly is when he's winning the most outstanding player in the entire league, right? Leading a team to a 16-2 record. They didn't lose a game that Chad Kelly started and finished last year. So that just speaks to the quality of a player he is. And I understand in the East Final, he had arguably the biggest individual choke job in the history of Toronto sports. And that is not hyperbolic. The guy had 5 turnovers on his own. That's about.
But I guess we found out afterwards he had a little bit going on.
Yeah, well, no kidding. He most certainly did. So if Chad Kelly returns and is able to play the way he did last year which is, again, as good as anybody in the Canadian Football League played that position. And I think the Argos are absolutely Grey Cup contenders, but it's on Dukes and it's on the guys in place right now to keep them around 500 until Kelly comes back, and you hope they just hit the ground running. And I know, honestly, hopefully I'm wrong, because I love this Chad. I love this Cameron Dukes story. And if he was a guy who could, somehow go 8-1, maybe the Argos do reconsider what they have at quarterback. I don't see that as a likelihood, if not a possibility. Again, Kelly's an unbelievably talented player, and I think the Argos would be very, very happy to get him back on the fold. But huge kudos to Dukes and everything he's been able to do so far.
You don't think they're going to move on from Kelly because of this, do you?
No, I don't.
No, I don't either.
He'll
be back.
I think he's serving a very significant suspension for what he is alleged to have done, and he's paying for it. And if I don't know exactly the specifics, but Chad Kelly's missing half the season. Season. No one can say that the suspension wasn't a stiff one or wasn't harsh enough, because it's very rare you see suspensions in any sports for half a season beyond steroid use or anything like that. And what he was accused of is not exactly the most, glamorous thing. I don't know, probably a poor choice of words, but it's not a flattering thing. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it's not a criminal thing either. And he's going to pay his debt to the Canadian Football League for those 9 games. And I think when he's able to return, he will for the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. AK, I want to ask you quickly as well before we let you go. You're a betting man. You throw plenty of ideas out there for the wagering world, if you will. What are some early bets that you would feel comfortable making about this CFL season in general?
So the CFL season in general, I think a team like Saskatchewan's really interesting right now, and their odds have really shortened after they've had an amazing start to the season. But you look at West, Winnipeg looks awful with Collaros. They haven't won a game yet. The injuries are just piling up on both offense and defense for them. BC's defense looks terrible. They're getting lit up week after week. I think Saskatchewan, led by Corey Mace, the former defensive coordinator for the Argos, that's a sneaky team right there. They've got a really quality quarterback in Trevor Harris, a good defense, really nice offense. Looking at them to win the Grey Cup, I don't think is completely outlandish. And again, the Argos are a team that could theoretically add the best player in the league after 9 weeks, and you add him to the mix, and you could find them at 6 or 7 to 1. I've heard of worse bets, and I've made many worse bets than that. Trust me, fellas. No doubt about that.
How's the golf
look
game?
At MVP?
What's that, sorry?
Early look at MVP?
MOP right now in the CFL. I think Cody Fajardo would have to be considered the favorite the way that he and the Alouettes have started. But Trevor Harris has had a great start to the season. Vernon Adams is on pace for more than 6,000 passing yards, something we haven't seen since, I believe, Doug Flutie in 96. So it's been a long time since anyone's been able to put up that type of statistical output like Vernon. So I think Fajardo and Adams could be the guys going head-to-head down the stretch. As for my golf game, it's garbage. It is garbage.
It's garbage.
I'm grinding away, Clarkey, and I need to find it because I have couple of weeks off in the month of July where I plan on teeing it extensively, and I need to get the game ready to go.
Well, listen, Clarkey,
standing invite to Listowel Golf Course. You and Carlo should come on up, and Ryan and I will host you guys there. Carlo can bring his fishing rod. There's lots of water on the course too. Lots of little ponds.
There is.
Yeah, so there you go. Let's get you guys up here.
All right, duly noted. I appreciate the invite.
You know what we'll do too? We are very good friends with the now defending PGA Canada Senior and Super Senior Champion of 2024, Ian Doig of the Ian Doig Golf Academy. We'll get Doigy down. We'll get you some lessons, AK. We'll walk you through some things. Let's go.
He would do that. He would do that.
Help me. Doigy needs to figure out my driver. It's two-way.
He would do it.
We push it right. We snap it left. I don't know where the hell it's going.
We'll spend an hour on the range first. We'll spend an hour on the range, then we'll play around. Just tell us the day.
I can't wait to see you at Listowel. Done.
There you go.
We'll set it up. Absolutely. He is Aaron Korolnek, host of TSN 1050's First Up alongside Carlo Colaiacovo. You can catch the show every morning like we do, and you should too, especially if you're a Toronto sports fan, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 in the morning. AK, we can't thank you enough, brother. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure, guys. Always a blast to be with you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, Clarkey and I have to hand out our weekly award. You know what time it is, the Conway Furniture Couch Potatoes of the Week. are coming up next here on Instigating. Welcome back. Wrapping things up on another great show here at Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Thanks so much to our buddy Aaron Korolnek of TSN 1050's First Up. That dude, when it comes to Toronto sports and really just talking sports in general, there are few people better in this country at chatting and throwing out some takes than AK. That dude's a beauty. Him and Carlo, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10. Tune in TSN 1050 for First Up. It's the best way to wake up if you're a sports fan here in Canada. Ryan Drury alongside Clarkey, wrapping things up here. And of course, it's time. You know what time it is. We're brought to you, of course, by Conway Furniture, Highway 86, east end of Listowel. And of course, Larry Hudson, Chevrolet Buick GMC. And real quick, before we get to our Conway Furniture Couch Potatoes, Clarkey, it's the summer. People are out hitting the roads. Maybe people thinking about getting a new vehicle. And Larry Hudson's is a great place to do that.
Why? Because Hudson's has it.
They have everything.
And we have Camaros on the lot right now. As I've said, Ryan, you got to get in the Camaro, man. You got to get in the Camaro. There's nothing like it. So
if I made Mitch Marner money, I would.
Yeah. Trucks. We got trucks. We got Yukons, whatever. The new Traverse, the new Acadia. So nice. Come on, take a look. Take a look at them. Take a look at them. Your mom's still looking?
Mom's considering. Always selling. That's Clarkey, baby. Always selling.
Hey, come on. Get your mom in. Let's go. You come with her. And
I'll bring mom in.
Yeah, bring mom in, and we'll sit down and we'll take a look at what she needs, and I'll help out for sure. Because Hudson's has it.
Hudson's has it. Deals are hot. Summer's hot, deals are hotter. I guarantee at Larry Hudson's. Go see Clarkey or one of their great reps over there. 1000 Wallace Avenue, Listowel.
And I got to apologize. I don't have my Conway hat today. I just made it back into the country. Had a few days off.
Just returned.
R&R, and I met lovely Sue, my fiance, in her backyard today. If you're wondering where I am, that's where I am. So I'm just sitting in the backyard. And I just have my Argo hat. So that's going to have to do today. But let's get right into the couch potato of the week.
Yes, let's do it.
And congratulations. Let's talk about two things. Okay. I picked the Florida Panthers. You picked the Edmonton Oilers, so I win that one. I got to admit, we watched a couple of games together, and I wanted the Panthers. And then when they got to Game 7, I kind of was pulling a little bit for the Oilers because I thought it would have been a great story. And as I said to you that night after the game was over, I've put up with a lot of pain and anguish in my sports watching life so far. I don't think there's anything worse than what Edmonton did. Coming back from 3-0 and forcing Game 7 and then losing, it just had to hurt big time for all those Oiler fans out there. Unbelievable pain. You saw all the fans at the arena. And I tell you, it had to be just heart-wrenching to lose that game. But congratulations to the Florida Panthers. And that brings my couch potato. And two guys I want to focus on today, because two guys who I got to know. And yes, I'm going back to my Leaf days like I love to do. But as I've told you on this program before, I really, really appreciated Paul Maurice. When I worked there. Paul was such a genuine good guy, just real good guy, treated me very nicely. I would, literally 2 minutes before a hockey game, text him or email him about lineup changes, and he would always return. I'm like, this guy's got to be just getting on, walking onto the ice, and he's returning my text. Anyway, great guy. Congratulations to Paul Maurice. And when he lifted that Stanley Cup above his head,
that was sick.
It was sick. Again, you and I were watching that together, and it was really, really a great moment. And there's Bryan McCabe, who's with the Panthers organization, and my daughter Amanda, who he was always accommodating to. Came out and chatted. This is in Detroit at the alumni game. When the Leafs were there, it must have been an alumni game, right? He wouldn't have been playing on the team at that point. It was an alumni game.
Not back in 2014 for sure. Alumni, yeah. So he was on the alumni game, and I said, "Hey, do you mind just coming out and getting a picture with Amanda?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." So he did. He came out. Just such a good guy. The Overdrive guys love his yellow teeth.
but we won't mention that today.
Yeah.
They have fun with McCabe, though. But congratulations to those two guys, Bryan McCabe and Paul Maurice, on winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, well deserved.
Maybe I'll be congratulating Craig Berube on his second.
That would be nice for you, for sure. No, congrats to them. I think everybody was happy to see Paul Maurice raise most games and wins without winning the cup ever. Finally puts an end to that. And that was almost a spiritual moment when he got the cup, right as he was about to do an interview too. And Spencer Knight came over and said, no, coach, it's something a little more important. And he, that was great to see him lift that. That was such a great moment. Really, really cool. My couch potato is a little more dour, if you will, a little bit more on the dark side. And we didn't bring this up. It was lightly touched on with our friend Aaron Korolnek. But just when you think this Blue Jays season can't get any worse, something like this happens. Adam, throw it up. Their number one prospect, outside of Ricky Tiedemann, who's a pitcher, Orelvis Martinez, comes up, doesn't get into the lineup for the first couple of games, finally gets in for what he played, 4 games, and then immediately at the end of last weekend, it's announced that he's suspended for PED use. So he's going to be suspended 80 games. This is the most Jays thing ever. This franchise is like self-cursed. It's the computers, it's the drafting, it's the bad farm system, it's the lackluster roster, it's the brutal hitting that doesn't improve. And now this was just the last possible thing they needed to have their number one outfield prospect be tagged with PED use. And he had a real weird excuse that he was on this fertility drug that he wanted to keep private.
It's got to be the truth.
Yeah, he was on a fertility drug that the doctor assured him and his wife when he was prescribed it for fertility issues, which if that's true, God bless him. I'd wish any family luck in trying to have a family, obviously. But the doctor, he said, assured him there wasn't anything that's a banned substance. And he was forthright saying, I should have told the team. And he didn't tell his team doctors, which is always a problem. So if it's true, one of two things is true here. He's lying or he's really dumb. And that's not good either, Clarkey.
No, I think it's the doctor misremembered the ingredients. That's what I think.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man. That's just not the news they needed.
You know how I feel about this. You know how I feel about all this. Every time I hear it. Yeah, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, sure. Chris Colabello. Sorry, I don't believe it.
I know, and I understand why, because of baseball's shady past. I completely understand why, Clarkey. Really quick, producer Adam, you know what to do here. We are sponsored. That was our Conway Furniture Couch Potato. And in case you forgot where Conway Furniture is, Phil Main?
Conway Furniture, Highway 86, just east of Listowel.
That's right. Easy to find. And when you go in and you visit our friends at Conway Furniture, by the way, maybe you're going in there and you'd like a new couch to become a Couch Potato, be part of Couch Potato Nation. We should make some shirts, Couch Potato Nation, and we'll put our heads on some Mr. Potato Head bodies maybe. And when you go in there, maybe you want a new couch, new love seat for mom, who knows? Maybe you want some new kitchenware, a brand new kitchen table, lamps, lots of things in there. It's not just all about the couches. When you go in there and you look at the price, it includes HST and delivery. Thank you very much. And Clarkey is
Are we done?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's time. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Hey,
Clarkey's about to do what the Toronto Blue Jays have done all year. A cannonball into nothingness. There he goes. Clarkey is gone. What an exit. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much to Aaron Korolnek of TSN 1050's First Up. Thank you so much for watching the show. Remember, you can watch this show Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9. I'm jealous of Clarkey there. With our friends on Whiteman TV, that's channel 6 for Whiteman subscribers. Remember, we debut on our YouTube channel Friday nights at 9. Follow us on social media at Instigating Pod. Find the podcast version on all your favorite podcast apps. Make sure you do the same for First Up with AK and Carlo Colaiacovo on TSN 1050. We'll be back next week with more Instigating. See you later.